It's 6 o'clock, call the meeting to order. Please stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, approval of treasurer warrants. Payroll warrants for July 12th and July 19th.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Accounts payable warrants for July 16th and July 23rd.
We'll move that the accounts payable warrants for the 16th of July 2019 and the 23rd of July 2019 be accepted as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Yes. Yes, we got both days. Thank you. Approval of the minutes for July 9th, 2019. Is there any corrections? I personally didn't see anything wrong. Yes, Ben?
Well, I'll ask. Second page under the new business, under B. Second line at the end, it said, he said Alden would sign a one-year contract with Wiscasset. Referring to Doug Bassett. I thought he indicated he thought they would, but he didn't say.
I believe he said they would. That's how I believe he said he would.
I took it that he believed that they would, and he couldn't speak for the whole board. I thought that's what he said.
I thought that he said that they would, provided that we agreed to look into the cost sharing over the course of this year.
Right.
Oh, okay. Brought it up, I just said.
And I believe they have signed it. So.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that.
I make a motion that we accept the July 9, 2019 minutes.
Second.
Thank you. We have no special presentations. The next one is a committee appointment. I remember when Jeff was on the board before, we used to have one of the selectmen who would interview the prospective new candidates for a committee, and I'm just wondering if that's something that the board wants to institute again. I thought it was very helpful just to get their background and have a selectman bring the name forward. I'm bringing this out to the people, to the board. What do you think?
I think that when I started between Dunning and I, and then it was me, and what's neat is that you have the chairman of that committee come with you when
Yes.
when you interview, so it was good.
Because right now, we're going to approve, this gentleman wants to be approved for the ordinance review committee, and the chairman of the ordinance review is not here. We have no input from him whatsoever. Yes.
I think that's a good idea, especially if an applicant is brand new at this whole business, which I assume Mr. Montero is. Has never been on a town board or
Yes.
town committee. And so I think that is a good idea.
If it's somebody that's reapplying, I have no
Yes.
problem. I think someone new that, to find out their intentions, I guess maybe that's what it is.
I would do it again if it's an interest.
Yeah, I can see the wheels turning.
I know, I think it's a great idea. I wish that we had had that
Yes.
known before, especially this particular person
Yes.
filled in his application. I would say maybe we can start that after this appointment.
Absolutely.
Because, I don't need to say why,
I personally I would not even want to make a motion on this. But we can't. I'd like to wait and have him interviewed by a selectman.
Well, I have some hesitations about that. At least once in the past, it's like one person can veto it, and we didn't get to vote on something. And I don't particularly like that either. one thing if it came forward with the recommendation for or against it, we voted. But just to have it, sort of like guide a committee.
Well, I think in the past, what Jeff used to do is come forward with, say there was 2 applicants, and he would talk about both of them and recommend either for or against, yes.
Well, I did notice in the ordinance review committee report, they have low numbers, they're not full, and I feel like if we can get people to volunteer to serve on those committees, that's a really good thing, the more people involved. And then in particular with this candidate, every time he comes before one of our boards, and I'm talking about the, thank you, something is changed. And so when he filled in his application, nobody told him that he would have to be interviewed, and now we're gonna be like, oh, excuse me, but this thing has changed. And I feel like, I love that idea, let's institute it after this candidate, but to change the rules because this guy's paper is in front of us is not something I would be in favor of.
Okay, so we will institute after this, with this gentleman.
We will vote on it.
Yes.
Okay.
But right now, we have this gentleman who wants to be appointed to the ordinance review, yes.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve Christopher Gianturo to the ordinance review committee.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Opposed? And now I'm going to have a motion regarding the committee appointing Jeff to interview committee appointments.
Did you just get voluntold?
What's that?
He said he would.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he said he
I
would.
think he just got voluntold.
I
He
did.
already said he would.
Absolutely. I like the ball and told. That's,
I make a motion that we take Jeff up on his offer to head up a committee membership applicant meeting, review, however you want to put it, what kind of job description do you want to title?
exactly what you said.
Applicant reviewer.
Perfect.
I will second it. All those,
Madam Chair,
yes.
I do have a problem with this. I mean, I do have a pretty good memory, and I know of at least one applicant that was killed behind closed doors. I can't prove that because I refuse to take back in that executive session, but I know that that's what happened. I would like some assurances that if somebody applies, I don't have any problem with him interviewing it, but I want that application to come back and that we get to vote on it.
Definitely.
Well, okay, but that hasn't always happened.
I've never known it not to happen.
Well, but if I could bring law back, flag that, and I think we remember it too. That's all I ask, is if an application is put in, whatever the recommendation is, it comes back to the full board to vote on.
Yes, definitely. Yes, Karen?
You can do that. I was just gonna say, maybe it could be an attachment to the application, just like with the new business license, there's a place where, I don't know if you need to sign off on it, but maybe we could come up with like 4 or 5 questions that we ask every applicant and just something so it comes back. Because if Jeff goes and interviews someone, I would be interested in the transcript of that interview, or at least a summary of what had occurred. Because sometimes you vote on people and there have been times when people have been voted down and I didn't know why, so it would be good to have that information.
Okay. Yes, Kim?
Because these are volunteer appointments, I'm curious, if you're going to be interviewing people, what's the criteria that you're going to be saying yay or nay to these people?
I think that's, to me, if you have the chairman of the board with the ordinance review or planning board, and you have Jeff who represents the select board, they can pretty much ask questions regarding maybe their experience in planning or ordinance review and things like that.
Kim, I think you had never been on the planning board before when you applied to be on the planning board, and I'm guessing, or excuse me, budget committee. And I'm guessing that Jason had never been on an ordinance review or a planning board. So I'm wondering, I mean, what is the criteria? What would make you say yes or no to a person? And if these people, if you're saying no to them, do they get to know why? I mean, I'm sure your vast experience with budgets in a town was why they selected you, and the same for Jason's ordinance review experience. We're volunteers here. So I am very curious to know what might cause you to say no.
I don't know if it's ever happened yet.
And Ben has suggested that it has happened.
It certainly has.
I think you'll know why I'm bringing it up tonight. Because of the discussion that just passed. And it's disturbing. I don't like the idea that someone just might have a personal issue with someone and behind closed doors decide that that citizen of this town would not be allowed to participate as a volunteer.
Well, I brought it forth again because it had worked well in the past. If it's something the board doesn't want to do, I have no problem with it. Yes.
I sort of feel like the criteria is that you are a resident in the town, full stop. You know, if there's an opening on the board and we have a resident who wants, not the board, but a volunteer position, and we have a resident who wants to participate, unless there's people clamoring for that seat, but we have, all of our committees have empty seats on them.
Correct.
So, and here's a new, like, young person who wants to participate. I feel really excited about this. You know, we can't, that's how I feel.
And I would imagine that would require an interview to know that they were a citizen of the town.
No, that wouldn't require an interview.
I can understand if maybe there was some criteria for the behavior of a person once they were on a town committee. That's a whole different ballgame.
That is.
Okay, so right now we have it moved and seconded. All those in favor of the committee?
To interview, can we amend it and say only if, I'm sorry, Catherine. Can we amend it and say in the case that there are people competing for a seat? Because there were times when we had multiple people apply for the one seat on like the,
We haven't voted to take Jeff up as well, which is committed to,
Oh, okay. That's what it passed. Well, that's the discussion. If we take him up on his offer, then we will have this committee. That's the one we have not voted on.
Right.
Okay. So, the motion is to take Jeff up on his offer.
I didn't ask for an amendment on it, I won't. I'll take your word at it, that any applicant will come back to us no matter what that committee might say.
Definitely. I think that's the way it is. As far as I know, that's the way it's always been.
I'll remind you later on. It really hasn't.
Now you've got my curiosity.
it hasn't been this way the whole year that I've been on the board. There's never been, like when I went on the budget committee 2 years ago and nobody interviewed me. So this, to me, this seems like a change. You know, like I don't have your historical perspective, but to me, this is like a change.
Yes, Judy?
Do I need to go over there?
Yes, please. Or you can stand right there. No, that's okay.
It's true, you didn't make it.
Just a little history. Way back, when I was on board one of the terms, there was no committee, no review. And we had a discussion about applications came in, and we kind of asked questions, but it was quite awkward to do that in a public meeting, and then there was a decision, well, let's have a committee that could interview them. And that committee, and I think it was at least 2, if not 3 board members, would interview the candidate. And then it changed, moved to 2, and then 1. And, but it is difficult if people do not know a new candidate to say, oh, she's new and she's young and she'll bring energy. But if don't know the person, you're making a decision without knowing anything about that person. Why they want to be on, what their experience is, what they would bring to the table. So I think it's worth having someone or two someones, and the idea of the chairman of the committee and a board member, I thought seemed to work.
Thank you. Catherine?
I agree with Judy. And I think that when all is said and done, the applicant becomes a member of what, he or she becomes a member of whatever committee they've applied for and are approved by the board. If they only have one vote on the committee. And if there is a problem down the road, we will certainly hear about it and we can deal with it then. But to put the cart before the board, let's just let Jeff continue with his volunteer spirit.
Okay. Are we ready to vote?
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
So it sounds like there was a committee like that at some point in the past, and then there wasn't. If we do this, is it going to be something that happens consistently, forevermore, or not? And what makes it consistent?
It depends on the
It
board.
depends on the board of selectmen. Another board, in June, another board can come in here and change everything.
So this committee with Jeff on it would just be for this year?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's how I would take it. Would have to be every year, then it would have to be renewed, if you want to say that.
So
And one of the, it happened once or twice when I interviewed the person, the chairman of the committee was there and explained what time the meetings were, you know, what was expected, and the person looked at me and the committee chairman and said, this isn't what I thought that it was. And they withdrew there, because so it was not really an interview per se, whether I or the committee chairman or the board wanted them. But what I found out was that there was one person that applied for the budget committee and then wanted to be on the celebration. And I said, there's room for that. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like people are new here in town, and it was just kind of like a handshake, welcoming them. Do you know what I mean? And then to ask them what they thought. You know, it's never been, it's always been very pleasant. Do you know what and the chairman has always liked it too, especially on the budget committee. When the budget committee was full, Cliff Hendricks was the chair, and he really liked, getting different people with different strengths, and it was like I said, it wasn't ever to not have anybody join.
Okay. So we are having a motion to take Jeff up on his volunteering.
the 1 year.
Go 1 year to the end of next year, June.
Okay.
All those in favor?
I was waiting to see what the vote was. I was trying to abstain since it was me.
Okay. Thank you.
Judy, just one point, for me, it's really difficult to vote on these things without having time to reflect on them before meeting. I know that it says we can bring things up during any meeting to vote on, but if we anticipate something might be coming, I would just love a heads up so I can get my ducks in a row before I arrive. Like, I really like to just read and think and reflect.
Certainly. Okay, we have no public hearing. Public comment. At each regular selectman meeting, there'll be time to vote to any resident or taxpayer of the town of Wiscasset to address the selectmen regarding any item that is not on the agenda for that meeting. Yes, Bill?
On a positive note, I'd like to thank Ted Snowden and the highway crew, town crew, the work they did around the powerhouse. And I believe it was Steve Christensen, I'm sorry, I don't remember the other employee. They went up and they spent a good part of the morning weed whacking all around that building. And prior to that, I think it was 2-3 weeks ago, they cleaned a path, the walking path that had been strewn with rocks from the wall that was blocking the pathway up to the powerhouse. It looks good now, and I would encourage select board that, and when you're on Churchill Street, have a look, because it is one of the town's assets. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Judy?
Not to be outdone by these, but I want to compliment the safety issue that's happened out in the parking lot, the white line down the center. I think it will really help drivers and pedestrians and people that are parking and pulling out. And I drove my boat around it and parked in front here, and I made it. I didn't hit the building. So, they hit a bush. You didn't hit the bush. I saved those for you. Thank you. But, no, thank you. I think the entrance will make that safer too, as you turn in. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Is there anyone else? Yes.
James Cochran. I've noticed during the MDOT work that the old curbing that's been removed, which we were given to understand would be saved and turned over to the town for uses. Somebody told me it's all being placed at the Rod and Gun Club. I'm not sure if that's an MDOT staging area or not, but there are areas now where I think the town could benefit to recover all of that and put it somewhere in storage, because we're losing curbing in certain areas. One thought that came to mind was after talking with somebody on Town Public Works, actually Steve Christensen, we were talking about the blacktop curbing on Railroad Avenue and how that's not going to really survive one plowing in the winter. You know, that'll get knocked right over. But if we had some of that old curbing available, we could use it around town to improve other areas. I hate to see it just lost.
Thank you.
If I might respond, we are getting off, we've been assured we get all the curbing. I don't know if it's something Public Works at this point, but we are getting all the curbing.
Rod and Gun Club,
Oh,
that deal with equipment.
well, they're just leaving it there
Yeah.
until we, okay. So it's still ours, and we will.
Okay, great, because we heard some people were actually taking it. That was, they were being told they could take it, and we heard some citizens that actually helped themselves with some of it.
Oh, that's news to me.
Yeah, that's
I'd
new.
like some.
They do have equipment.
Who took something?
Nothing.
No, I didn't know that.
Just think it's some landscaping
We've got
around the yard.
tons of it.
No, I'm just kidding.
And maybe all around where, you name it. And we put plows on it. My guys aren't going to be real concerned.
We got to know.
Maybe label it or
We
something.
discussed that, I think.
If that's the case, maybe it could be moved back to the highway department.
Or we're not going to get
Right.
plow.
Yeah, we're-
Yeah, it's like that, we're going to plow, we're going to
We can
plow.
find places.
Okay, is there anyone else that has anything in public comment? If not, we will go ahead. Department head or committee chair, Wiscasset EMS Director David Simmons, EMS Billing Introduction of Deputy Director.
So if you can shorten up just a little bit tonight, because unfortunately, Aaron Bean, who we've appointed as the deputy director, is still working through her 2 weeks' notice with her current employer, and she's actually on everyone's call already. So she can't be here tonight. If they're able to next select meeting, John, we're on each other. The next thing I have is I have a list here from the ambulance billing company, $106,219 in uncollected funds. A slight breakdown on that. These are 2017 and 18. Some of them are early 2019. Of that 106,000, 3,900 of that is $150 charge that we charge people that we go to their home you a little background on why we do that. I have a stack of town reports in my office. They go back to 2011 when Roland Abbott was director here. And in 2011, we answered 751 calls, and 66 of those were no transports. Last year, this is calendar year 2018, we did 781 transports, and 277 of them did not go. So in 2011, that was 8.6% of our volume. Last year, that was 35% of our volume. That we respond to a call we don't get paid for. Because we don't transport, insurance doesn't pay. So that's why we charge people $150. Of that $150, about 10% actually pay it. So of that amount, $3,900 is outstanding for that. $6,980 is what's left over after insurance is paid. So copays, deductibles, balance due. And $95,339 of it is just ambulance calls that we haven't received any money for. Of that $95,000, $19,586 of it is owed by just 4 individuals. And so I know Bernice has already written these off on the town books. What I need to know from you all is, what do you want to do with this money? Do you want to send it out for collections? Do you want to write it off? Do you want to send some of it out for collections? We just need some direction as to which way to go.
Can I make one correction? I haven't actually written it off. I put it into a contra revenue account that says that it's uncollectible.
So you can keep track of the.
It will still keep track until you folks decide whether you're going to write it off or send it out to collections.
And Bernice can tell you better than I can how successful we are on collections. I don't think we get around anything.
And there's a charge for us when we send it to collections.
Right. Yeah, we get a $10 payment, we get $7 off it.
That's what I'm saying. So if we don't get any of it back, we still have to pay that fee for it to go to collections. So
We only pay if they collect.
right, but I'm just saying that there's more of a cost to the town. I think at this point, in my humble opinion, than it is to, I don't see it being paid.
Yes,
I just want to clarify, Bernice, did you say if we send something out to collections, we only pay if they collect?
Yes.
So if we send this all out to collections and they never collect, it doesn't cost us anything?
Correct.
Are you familiar with what other towns do in this situation?
Yeah, so I asked medical billing about this, and they're pretty much all over the place. A lot of towns just don't send it out. And there is kind of a danger in going after people for something like this, especially the $150 charge that we charge. Because a lot of these are like lift assists for elderly people that are home and fallen and just need help getting up. And if we start suing them for this money, I'm afraid they're just not going to call us and they're going to lay on the floor for days at a time because they're afraid of getting the bill that they can't pay.
And these are residents?
And these are residents, yeah, well, mostly. This is a total amount, so it includes Westport and Dresden, but the balance of the bulk of our calls are in town. And there are some places that say anything over $500, send out anything under $500, write off. You can pick any amount you want. So for instance, for the ones that we've collected insurance on, there's a copay. That balance is between $25 and $430. So in those instances, we did get some money out of it. We got the insurance, we got Medicare, and there was a balance due, and they just didn't pay it.
Okay. But a big lot more self-pays, correct?
95,000 of it is self-pays, no insurance.
Have you ever worked with a formula of charitable care where it gets written off, so to speak, for free care, and then at the end of the year getting reimbursed through? I know Lincoln County Ambulance does it. I work with them for the low-income people, and they write it off to charitable care and then submit it.
Yeah, I don't know what the difference is because we're a municipal and they're not for profit. I
Correct.
don't know if that's even something that.
Absolutely. No, I just like I
And
said.
we do offer these people a payment plan. I mean, it's not that we don't try to work with them to try to do something. The billing company does offer them a payment plan. Send us $5 a month. Send us something.
Right.
But most of the time they don't.
So how much are you saying is, those are non-insured?
$95,339.
So in all reality, they don't have insurance, so trying to collect the money isn't gonna get us anywhere anyway.
You know,
If they don't have money for insurance, they definitely don't have money for an ambulance bill.
And Bernice can tell you that we get very little when we send this out. We get a check the other day for $7.
As I said, we got a check, they collected 10 and we got 7.
And I agree with you, as in my heart of hearts, still want them to call you. Do you know, like, I truly
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, and I will point out to you on some of this. I noticed one of the things when I first started here is we seem to write off a lot anyways, compared to some of the other places that I work. And so I looked at our rates relative to the area, and we're a little high on our rates in some places. So our write-offs are gonna be a little high anyways, because like Medicare, Medicare, and our contracted insurance companies pay what they pay. Doesn't make any difference what we bill them. They pay what they pay, and we have to write off the balance. So it's a little artificially inflated anyways. I'm not saying we need to change our rates. I just want to point that out, point that out to you relative to other services in the area.
So basically what you're asking us is to write off.
I'm just asking
You're
you what you want.
suggesting.
I'm just asking you what you want to do. I find it a bitter pill to swallow, but as Jeff has pointed out, this is a double-edged sword. You have some vulnerable people in town that just aren't going to be able to pay these bills, and they're picking between medications and housing and whatnot. It's a tough situation, and I certainly don't want to discourage people from calling.
Right, Catherine?
I'd like to ask Bernice her opinion or her thoughts on what she thinks would be the best way to do this. Just write it off as he's suggesting and you've suggested. It sounds to me like.
There's no sense in keeping it as a receivable if we're never going to receive it, similar to what we've
So
done with all the
this
property
other-
taxes.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought, but hearing it from you makes me feel better because you know what you're talking about.
Anybody else on the board have anything? Yes, please.
Didn't I remember that we were going to be able to charge for those lift assists and for going when there wasn't an actual transport?
That's what the $150 fee is for.
But are we not going to be able to get reimbursed for that from insurance at some point in time?
So there's a change with Medicare coming up on some of these non-transport.
That won't be covered, okay.
And I'm not even sure that's anything that's going to be functional in this area either, so.
Oh,
The way the rules are being written, it's not going to work well in the rural areas, but we'll see when they get done with it all.
So when I'm asking for myself also, I guess, in case I ever need an ambulance, you bill Medicare and then you bill the secondary also?
Yes. Yeah. So if they have secondary, that usually takes care of their deductibles or copays or
Right.
that stuff. Yeah.
But there's people out there that do not have this, the secondary, all they have is the Medicare.
Yep.
Okay.
or nothing at all.
Or nothing at all. Or main care. The good news is main care is actually going to be raising their rates this year, starting in January. They're actually going to be bumping their rates up to more along lines to Medicare rates. So we will see more revenue from that. It won't be a lot, but it'll be something.
And you said it was 106,000?
It is 106,219.
219. Okay, I'm gonna make the motion to write off the $106,219.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Okay.
Anything else?
Yep, the second thing I have is the Dresden contract. So I was doing some research on this because this is the last year of their contract with us. And so, when John and I discussed trying to get ahead of it a little bit instead of waiting until the last minute. And as I was reading the contract, under the uncollectibles segment, it says very clearly that in the event that Dresden terminates the contract before the expiration date, that they're responsible for the uncollectibles. But then it goes on to say, furthermore, Dresden shall still be responsible for any bills that are or will become uncollectible between the period of July 1st, 2017 and the last date that Dresden is a party to this agreement. So what that tells me is they're responsible for uncollectibles, period.
Correct.
In researching this further and looking at their town meeting for this time period, the two newspaper articles that I read and the minutes from the selectmen's meeting They were told that that was not the case. And one of the reasons that they went with Wiscasset over Gardner was because they weren't going to be charged for the uncollectibles. So I need because I wasn't here and John wasn't here, I need clarification from the board as to what the intent was on this contract, because they don't think they're going to be responsible. And we've sent them a bill
I'm
for
gonna say, isn't that the $6,900?
We sent them a bill
waiting
for
for money?
$6,900 for the 17-18 ambulance year.
And they haven't read their own copy of the contract?
Apparently they do, but according to their selectmen's minutes, they were under the impression that they were not going to have to pay for the uncollectibles.
Sounds like selective reading.
Do we have a signed contract with
We
them?
do have a signed contract. Yeah. So, I mean, some of you were here when this contract was drawn up, so I'm hoping you know
Yeah.
what you wanted to do.
And we did, Judy's shaking her head, yes. I'm pretty sure that that was the purpose, is that they would be responsible for the
Because I
uncollectibles.
know that's what we're doing with Westport.
We made the contracts the same, Westport and Dresden, if I'm not mistaken. So, yes, if they terminated prior to the end of the contract, then they would be, and even at this point, they would be.
According to this, from what I read, the way I read it is they're responsible, period.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, because there are two newspaper articles here with Toby standing up there saying that's not the case.
Well, doesn't the contract override? I don't know.
I mean, he can stand up and say anything
It
he
does.
wants.
It does.
The contract states.
But he did say in their town meeting that that was not the case, and in their town meeting, that's why they voted to leave Gardner and come with us, because they weren't gonna have to pay those.
I feel sorry for Dresden at this point, I guess. But maybe they should read the contracts a little bit. Before they sign them.
I just needed clarification, that's all, so that we can go
Yeah.
forward and I can
I
go to
see
the
no
next
problem.
selectmen's meeting and say, hey, sorry, this is what it is.
Yes.
Are we accountable at all for what our previous employee may have said in a town meeting? I see you
don't see
nodding
it.
your head, yes. So,
Yeah, well, first off, if he misunderstood it, that's one thing. But if he spoke out like that and there were newspaper reports about it, he didn't retract, it's not unreasonable to say President, was reassured by that and went ahead on that understanding. I'm being devil's advocate, but I mean, it's awkward. I don't like the whole idea of how much is uncollectible. I don't know what other departments do with their uncollectibles, whether.
There are other places, I think Bath does it with West Bath and one other town, they do the uncollectibles. A lot of places just factor it in and say, this is how much it's gonna cost you, because we know from past history, last year was $7,000, so we're gonna charge you $13,000 and just leave it at that.
Well, that might be a future.
Which kind of gets you out of some arguments of, people stand up and say, well, then why have to pay his ambulance bill? But anyways.
Well, we like to treat them as if they're our own, even though they may live in a different town. And of course, I'm not going to bother collecting our own. And I'm just being devil's advocate. It seems kind of unfair to, they love us one time, but now they're going to make us pay up on all the uncollectibles, which realistically nobody expects to collect. I mean, it's definitely a dilemma. That's my 2 cents worth, not that it's much help, but.
But I mean, it's a contract. They signed the
No, I understand.
contract. Yes, Kim?
I mean, it just, there's a conflict between what our EMS director said and what's in the contract. I totally agree with you, the contract is the contract, but,
This is their selectmen's meetings from May 15th.
should we maybe consider asking our,
I'm sorry?
asking an attorney or asking an MA, like for some guidance?
Yeah, we haven't so far, but we could. I wouldn't hold out an awful lot of hope based on the statements and their understanding. And yes, the contract says one thing, but there are a lot of things everywhere that people choose to misunderstand, and they go on long enough, and it's kind of, I guess, but I certainly could call an attorney.
I don't know if you need to, I just want, I don't feel comfortable saying like, no, stick with the contract because a representative of our town said publicly in a meeting and was that something opposite than what's in the contract. So I don't know which one weighs more legally.
If the board wishes, I would check with an attorney.
What does the board think?
Did you research what our minutes said?
I have not seen those, no.
It strikes me the fact that we made it into the contract, we asked to have it in there. It just wouldn't go in by accident.
We discussed it at great length.
Yes, it was discussed.
Because that was the main reason we spent so much time talking about it. We didn't want to continue with even the cost of people in other towns.
Yes, we definitely
Using
want
our-
to.
This is, you know, Dresden
We had the
residents.
problem with Edgecombe.
This was
that's
just
why.
Mary signed up.
So that was one of the main reasons we did what we did. And unfortunately, I think Mr. Lang took it upon himself to make himself look good. And
But is it, but
that's what he
again,
said.
It's
I'm
not
glad it's
Lang.
gone. And I don't mind saying it publicly.
but I have a question, not knowing what our minutes say. Is this prior to us voting on the contract? These
Well, it's prior before it was
articles?
signed, is what I just asked.
Hmm?
That was prior before the signing of the contract.
So this contract was signed on July 24th, 2017, which is after all of that.
So they didn't read it.
So even though there was discussion at these meetings, they still signed a contract that said they were gonna have to pay it.
My guess is that would trump anything that was
The
said.
plot thickens.
Yeah.
It just seems like the bait and switch kind
Yeah,
of.
because this is May 15th.
Right, that was the preliminary discussions over what they were going to present at their town meeting.
So that's why I'm wondering if this is all coming about prior to us discussing the contract in a public meeting and offering them a contract. I think we need to check our minutes
Definitely.
and see what, because I remember discussing that. It was a heavy discussion that we had about them being responsible for the uncollectibles.
Okay. We can ask Kathy, I'm sure Kathy can pull us up.
Yeah, I'm sure Kathy. Okay.
And just one more quick thing, I've asked John for permission to, I don't know if all of you have been into my office, but I'm basically in a closet. I sit behind the ambulances, in a room with no windows and no air and no room, and especially with the deputy director coming on, we definitely have no room. And when the ambulances start, I get a whiff of the exhaust every time that door is open. So I've asked John for permission to, we have a room upstairs that we're using for a training room. We don't use it all that often. Just build a petition on the back third of it and move the office upstairs. It doesn't require anything more than a wall, a door, and a window. We don't have to do any wiring. The only wiring we'll have to do is just move the network cable upstairs. I had TJ look at it. He gave me an estimate of $2,200 to do that. So John just wanted me to run it by you guys first.
I have no problem with that, if what's the rest of the board think? Go ahead.
And the light will still come through from.
Yeah, so we're gonna put a door with a window in it and a window beside, so there'll be light in the rest of the room. Air will be able to come through into the rest of the room.
His office is horrible.
But, yeah, it's dark, it's, it's pretty dingy.
It is a closet.
Do we need a motion on that?
I think it'd be, I think it'd
The
be.
council-
It came in under the amount they have to go out to bid, so.
Does it come out as, whose budget does it come out of?
Municipal buildings, so,
Yeah.
So we have the money for that?
yeah, for now until we spend it all.
Get it before we spend it.
Do we need a motion?
I don't think.
You don't actually need a motion.
If we have a consensus of the board, I don't see what the problem is. Okay.
That's all I have.
That's all you have to
Is
do.
it done?
Thank you very much, Beth. Okay, comprehensive plan update, Kimberly Anderson.
So on June 10th, just about 2 weeks ago. I had a sort of open meeting for anyone in the know. Sorry, Jason, just missed the memo. For anyone who wanted to come and like sort of talk about the comprehensive review process. And so I did a little presentation with comprehensive planning, and then we brainstormed different types of people or segments of the community that we would like to see represented on the committee. And very briefly, I'll just tell you some of the things we came up with. People who are industry leaders, non-resident stakeholders, public finance people, chamber of commerce people, religious organizations, students, social services, bicycle coalitions, people who can fundraise, in addition to a member of the Board of Selectmen, representatives of other local boards and agencies, representatives of key town departments, people from local businesses, including self-employed people, like fishermen and farmers. Did I say fishermen's? Just the fishermen. Representatives of local land trusts or conservation groups, people with special interests, like housing or historic resources or daycare or environmental groups. Long-term residents and new residents, people with specific skills, like surveyors, attorneys, architects. We have like a huge list of types of people that we want to reach out to. And so the next step, which I hope is going to occur before our next board meeting in the next 2 weeks, is for me to draft a letter and then share it back with the people who originally volunteered to help out, and say, all right, please distribute this letter to all of your connections who meet these types of person. And so what we'll ultimately do is bring back a list of recommendations to this board, so that the Board of Selectmen will appoint people to a comprehensive plan committee. So we're in the process of building the committee, and we had a lot of people there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We had 14 people attend. So I was pleased that we had 14 people turn out. The notice was in the newspaper. Created a Facebook group that's like open to anyone who's interested, and then creating a web page, which is going to be sort of like a storing house for all of the information that we put together. And then I'll ask John if he can link that to our town website. But the wheel is turning, or it's getting ready to turn. We're getting ready to push it downhill.
It's a slow process.
It's a slow process, and it's going to be slower than I anticipated. I was thinking we could do this within the year, but Mary Ellen and Judy were like, oh, these usually take a long time, 18 months, 2 years, so.
Yeah, it's going to take a while.
We'll see.
Okay.
So, but more updates to come. I'll stay on top of it.
Thank you, Karen.
Sure.
Department head monthly reports. Any comments?
I just had one comment.
Yes.
I just felt sad that, well, I thought, let's start with positive. I was really happy in the EMS report. I'm sad that he just walked out, but then he talked about how well he's getting along with the fire department. And I thought, oh, that's so real nice, very nice. And then in the Parks and Rec department, we have lost a couple of employees who left because their hours were cut. And there are people who worked for the department for decades in some case. That's all. I just felt a little sad about that.
Okay. Ordinance Review Committee, Jackie Lowell, in absence of Carl Olson. You're up.
Can I leave it here? No, I can take it off.
That requires a formal vote.
Huh?
That requires a formal vote. No.
It's okay, go ahead. You go from there.
Okay, I don't know exactly what you want. I did bring, there was some question at the last meeting about exactly who tells the committee what to do. So I did copy out from the ordinance exactly what the ordinance review committee would do.
I think Tim had several questions, do you not, regarding what?
Yeah, well, because this is very vague. It just uses language like we would like to work on this issue, but it's not clear to me what the issue is and what work they intend to do. And so I thought that what we had agreed at the last meeting was that Carl Olson would come and explain to us.
Yes, but there's a reason why Carl couldn't come tonight.
He's on vacation.
He's on vacation.
He's out west.
So he had Jackie do it.
What, was it something in his letter?
Yeah, the board would like permission from the select board to work on the issues in these zones, and I think issues refers back to some issues concerning land use ordinance, make around parking availability in the village, waterfront and Village 1, and mentions unregulated growth of Airbnb style rentals. I just would like, I don't understand what exactly are you going to work on?
Well, as far as parking is concerned, that's dealt with it's in the building code, it's in site plan review, it's in zoning, and it's in shoreline. So there's some difficulty in making sure all those are the same. There's a lot of, there are a lot of B&Bs, Airbnbs. I looked up online, and there's 8 within a tenth of a mile from the village center. And we have no idea how many we have, because they don't have to register, they don't.
So I'm confused, is the issue about the parking, or is the issue about unregistered businesses?
Well, they're connected, because if we don't know what we have, what kind of parking we need there, because we don't know what buildings are residential, which ones are Airbnb. There's quite a few, and they require 1.5 parking spaces for guests.
So what's the work you're going to do?
Well, first you look at all the. Well, first of all, we'll look at some of Jim Cochin's suggestions. We'll look at those and see if they're viable. Jim wants to speak.
May I add? Basically, the ordinance has been sitting there for years untouched, unexamined, and I think what Mr. Cochin and what Mr. Olson are trying to do is pick the ones that are causing the most aggravation, most confusion at this point. It's only a starting point. There's a lot of work to be done on the whole ordinance thing, but these are the particular things that are the highest concern right now, and I would expect over the next 6 months that the ORC would decide on a series of priorities for the whole thing and systematically go through all the ordinances. Huge task, but
And just review them and update them.
yeah, and obviously everything has to be approved by the board, discussed with the board.
And is Jim, are you on the ordinance review committee?
No.
Why not? I mean, I think you should be.
There's
Do you know what I mean?
There are no openings, aren't there?
I'm sure there are.
Yeah, there are, you can't,
Did you receive the memo I sent to you?
I honestly, I didn't get to read through the whole thing.
Okay, so after I heard your questions watching the YouTube from the last meeting, I sent Selectman Anderson a memo giving the background. The issues, the primary issues, there's a lot of confusing language, as Mr. O'Connell said earlier, and some of it conflicts with itself, and it's overly tedious to go through too. But what happened last year was early in the year, or late, I should say, in late in 2018, a multi-housing unit was approved in Waterfront. And it put a huge imposition of essentially where safeguarded elsewhere in the town, where there's a requirement for 1.5 spaces being provided for, say, multi-housing elsewhere, there were no requirements because of the vague wording for Village 1 and Waterfront. And so something that could have been turned down or said denied until you provide adequate off-street parking didn't happen. there was only essentially one parking space available for that property. So what this means is a huge impact on public parking. And so I became concerned when I learned about this of what would happen if more multi-housing went into Village 1 or waterfront that was unregulated. We would have no public parking left for commercial businesses, for other existing residences, and there are ways around this. There's a requirement, for example, for if you rent a room out in a home, a personal home in the town, you've got to provide one parking space for every bedroom or unit you rent. But again, it's not clarified for Village 1 and waterfront. And so one of the things that came up in this, and this was something the previous code officer in town I know was starting to look at, was the prevalence of B&Bs. And this is something that towns across Maine are grappling with, and frankly nationally. A lot of them don't register as businesses. And we can't enforce a requirement that if you have a B&B, you've got to provide for every B&B unit you rent, you should be providing at least one rental space, because currently they're not listed or required to be registered as businesses. So one recommendation I made, this was to the planning board, and then it got referred to ORB. So this is why it came from ORB. I was making this planning board saying, recommending that it might be wise to start, the town to start having B&Bs registered as businesses. If for nothing else, since it doesn't cost anything to register your business, so we know how many B&Bs are out there, and so we can, if there is a need, to make sure that they are providing off-street parking. I happen to know some of the B&Bs in Village 1 have like one or no parking spaces, and there are more units than one unit. So this is an issue, and since we have lost parking, it's going to be ever increasing. So there are just some loose areas that need to be cleaned up in this area.
And Judy, didn't you say at our last meeting that until all of the parking and MDOT project is over, we should just kind of pause on this?
Well, I keep saying that we need to, but again, if they start the process now, hopefully this will be taken care of. Because I think, my personal opinion, the parking issue downtown is bigger than the ORC. We have people that are taking spaces in the public lots that leave their cars there during the winter time, the whole 9 yards. I think we've discussed this now, I think for the last 3 years that I've been on the board. And I know that a lot of people, I think that if you're going to use a public parking lot as your space for your vehicle, I think you should have to have some type of a sticker on your car to let us know that that is your space. Our ordinance states that a landlord is required by ordinance to have a parking spot per tenant, and it's not being followed. So I have no problem with you doing this, and I think this is something we need to do. We have to consider what's going to happen on the Water Street parking lot that we just now have and down on Railroad Avenue. Are those going to be filled with tenants? I don't want to, I've got to be careful how I say this. Tenant parking, and there won't be enough parking for the customers that we want to see come to Wiscasset. And I do think bed and breakfasts need to have a license. We need to know what is going on in this town because of the limited parking. And this may take a year, it may take more to get this straightened around. Because I don't really feel that, unless I'm wrong, that you can determine the parking until after all this is done anyway. You can start with the bed and breakfast.
It's actually the multi-housing is my biggest concern because of what I saw already. And then I heard that the other CEI building has a contract pending. And if that was suddenly to also become multi-housing, and we're currently, the way the zoning for one and waterfront reads, it's so nebulous that it could slide through it. And then we're really going to be a serious issue. So there are things that can be done now. I mean, regulating B&Bs, just because that's easily done, and they are businesses, let's face it.
Are you saying B&Bs or Airbnbs?
Airbnbs.
Because I think
Well,
B&Bs have to register.
No, Airbnbs need to be regulated.
Yeah, or
just like-
VRBO,
I'm sorry, yeah.
like vacation rental.
What's an Airbnb? I guess I don't know.
It's, you know what it is, Ben? It's like, say you were gonna go spend the summer up in your camp, if you had a camp and you wanted to rent your house out, you could rent it out by the week to people, and then now that's become like a really popular thing to do. So there's websites like VRBO and Airbnb.com, and so I can go online and I can find, it's cheaper than a hotel, it doesn't have the amenities of a hotel, but I could come and live in your house, you know, you could make some money while you're not there. It's a big issue. I know Portland has been dealing with it. It's happening all over. I have friends who've been
Edgewood's
Airbnb
dealing
their
with it.
apartment for years.
Jason?
I just want to say that it is a huge issue in a lot of cities because nobody can live there. Families can't find homes because they're constantly rented out on a constant cycle. But that's, my other point was that this definitely ties in with the comprehensive plan. I think, and use of automobiles is a huge issue for the future. Right now, you can park your car anywhere you want, and nobody can really say anything about it, and that's going to have to change. And not just here, but as a way of thinking about your car, and it means a lot in a little village like this. It could fill right up. You know, it's like you go to a city where you got to move your car so they can plow. I mean, you got to have spaces for people to park, and it is a really long process. Everything we do with the ORC takes a long time, and a lot of times, and luckily, we have a new member because we rarely, well not rarely, depends on the time of year, have a quorum. We don't have enough people, so we all meet, and one person doesn't make it, it's 2 weeks later, and it's tedious rereading of the ordinances. It does take a long time.
So what I had done originally was gone through all the zoning ordinances for these areas and looked at the language and made some rewrite suggestions that could be, I think, fairly easily implemented that would safeguard Village 1, what we currently are looking for those areas anyhow, so it's not so nebulous. Not dealing with this overall parking issue. It wasn't really parking per se that precipitated the loss of parking because of multi-housing is interrelated. And Airbnbs kind of tie into that. So, I mean, we need to do some things in the interim. We can't wait forever just for a long-term parking thing. There are things I think that could be done to be implemented. And on the point of business registrations, we don't ask businesses to pay a registration fee. When I came here and formed my business, you know, I filled out my application, I paid for my sign review. This is the first time I've ever not paid to start a business in the town. And what I recommend the town does from this point forward for the board to consider is, say, a $50 business registration fee. And when we think about the time that the town staff puts into process their application, it's only paying for that. And if it's only a one-time thing, and maybe on renewals it's $10 for the renewal, what is it, 3 years out or something? And, you know, I'd happily pay in, you know, even though I've already done it and gotten through for free, I'd happily pay the fee because I'd like to see us tighten up and pay for pay as you go more in this town, so we're not covering our expenses. Thank you.
So what else do you want to know?
Kim, did you want to know anything else?
No, I mean, if they want to begin their review, that's fine. I just sort of am a bit of a libertarian and hate the idea of us over-regulating people who own properties in the town. I used to live in Manhattan, and you don't get a parking space. You don't get your sidewalk plowed either, like you have to take care of stuff. So I don't know, but I'm willing to approve them to review it and keep looking at it.
I think this is a good start. This is a place to start, and there's gonna be other, once the project, I keep saying it again, once this project is done, things are going to be changing in this town, and we are going to have to change some of our ordinances, and this is a start, and like we mentioned 2 weeks ago, nothing can be done without the board approval, and then we have to take it to the voters.
And also the comprehensive plan review will feed into this as well, because our ordinances should align with our comprehensive plan.
And actually, without a good comprehensive plan, your ordinances are on shaky ground.
Right.
And right now, our ordinance is kind of on shaky ground.
So I just don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, but if this review process is going to take a long time, and that's fine.
It's not gonna be something that's gonna be done in 30 days.
No.
I can tell you.
Just getting that.
It might get done the same time as your comprehensive plan. Yes, Catherine?
Mr. O'Connell's letter just asked that for our permission from the board to start working on the issues that they have outlined by paragraph, which is pretty self-explanatory in the first paragraph, and permission to do some house cleaning in other sections, and I think we ought to just say, yes, go.
Oh, I agree.
Everything that they do that they want to change has to come back to the board for our review, so it isn't written in law until this board approves.
A lot of effort into looking for
And it's gonna
consistency
take, oh, yes.
and clarification,
It's
because
certainly
as Jim
not a-
says, these things, you read it one way, you read it the other way. So
No, it's a monumental task, it really is.
So do you want to make that a motion?
Yeah. go
I'll
on.
second it.
Okay, all those in favor? 5-0, thank you. And I do agree with Kim, you ought to put in an application for the ordinance review.
Okay, if there's an opening, I will.
You want to speak
You're going to have to go through an interview process.
I will fill out the application.
Please do.
Tonight was an evening.
Please do. Okay, unfinished business, main art gallery sidewalk, which we did at 5:30 this afternoon. Anybody want to say anything?
No.
It's a great building.
It is a great building. We requested from, I can't remember his name.
David Pope.
David Pope, a list of priorities that he feels that needs to be taken care of at the art gallery. And I'm sure he will forward them on to the board and we will take it from there. Yes, Jim?
Am I to understand that they're asking the town to pay for the improvements?
Well, they have some money that they
That
want
has
to
not been
share.
discussed at this point.
Okay.
We requested some type of a plan of what they feel needs to be done, prioritizing everything. And then we will discuss, they do have some money to put forth and we will take it from there. But nothing is written in stone yet. Does anybody else have anything to say about our sidewalk?
Was there anyone from the Historical Preservation Commission?
No, there was not.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
There was 4 selectmen, 5 selectmen, newspaper, town manager.
Historic Preservation Commission.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. There was.
That's right, Bill was there.
Code enforcement was there and so was highway department.
Ted Snowden as well.
Very damp down below. That's the first thing. Very damp, very damp.
Very damp.
Yeah.
I don't like those stairs.
It's the salamanders.
And that's relatively new development. It looks like it's in good shape otherwise. It's damp now, but those timbers are still strong.
Okay, new business, pole permits. We have one for Youngs Point Road and for Rummer Mill Road.
Move the poll permits as presented.
Second that.
All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Monthly financials, year-to-date department expense report and HM Payson statement.
That's year end.
This is year end.
But we've only got one more bill expected from Animal Control Valley.
So we do have some overage in certain accounts, is that correct? And how are we planning on handling
Well,
that?
we've got on the agenda for carry forwards. We can do it now if you want.
Oh, we can go back, I'm sorry.
No, we got, she got plenty.
Yeah, forward's a different, I don't just something.
Okay, that's the aggregate, but then there's a 4-page expense summary report like this. And that would be.
Oh, I see it down under G.
10 G.
I'll wait for G, if that's okay.
It's not that big.
All right. No big deal. Okay, bid openings for the Wiscasset Community Center locker replacement.
One bid from MHS Sales and Service in Yarmouth. I hope that actually works. I'll pass it on to you.
Okay, you can open it.
And
They don't want you to have yours.
the last one, person, Kathy, was putting down one.
Did you do a bid to this several years ago
Oh,
for the lockers?
thought I couldn't tell you.
I don't think we ever did it for the lockers before.
Okay, I thought it was.
I don't think we did. Okay, this is from MHS Material Handling Sales out of Yarmouth, Maine. Total price, $29,820. Is that what we had?
How much was it?
$29,820.
It was 40 budgeted.
Yeah.
40 sounds
40.
what I think.
I'm thinking that's what we budgeted.
I'll check with Lisa in the morning, because that's the only bid we got, and lucky we got any.
Well, wait a second here. Then he added installation charge. That adds up. Total price, $34,415.
What is the total?
That's the
$34,415. And he's the only one that bid? What's the board's pleasure?
What do we usually say?
Manager's discretion.
Yeah, I move that the town manager meet with the Parks and Rec director and discuss the bid.
Yep,
Second that.
second.
Okay, all those in favor?
she apologizes for missing the meeting. She was out today.
Okay, the next item is review of rules of order and procedure for the Wiscasset Select Board. Ben, you asked for this to be on the agenda.
Yes, I'll move we approve it as presented.
Okay.
Would you like a notation with you date? Because you can see adopted, revised. It's not revised, just review, if you like. We'll just presented at you.
Yes, Kim?
I read these earlier. Wasn't there a place in here where it says that these same rules of specifically decorum apply to all committees of the town? Did I read that?
believe it does say in there somewhere. I think I read over it.
On the second page, number 11.
So I'm just wondering if we annually, do we distribute this to the board, the other committee chairs, so that they can review them with their committees? Because we can't expect people to,
Then-
follow these rules if we don't give them to them.
Well, if the board wishes to formalize that and say that they asked, directed me to distribute them to all town meetings.
We're talking on the 26th? Time limits and decorum?
Okay, down here, it's on page 4, the last paragraph. Members of the administrative staff and employees of the town shall observe the same rules of procedure and decorum. Blah, blah, blah. I feel like it was something about committees. maybe we should read it closely. If it doesn't say that our committees should follow these rules, I
I
think
don't
that
think
they.
it does. I think you're right. It only states about administrative staff and employees shall observe the same rules of procedure and decorum applicable to members of the board, meaning I would assume in their daily dealing with people.
I just wonder if it might not be a good idea to have the procedures followed by the other committees in our town, because they're representing our town. Just so it's clear that everyone's expected to proceed with decorum and order.
I could, if the board wishes, distribute these to every board, every chair, and these are the guidelines that the Board of Selectmen applies to themselves, employee behavior, and reviewing any changes that might be necessary to apply them to you.
They basically work for us, so that absolutely, they should go right.
They're technically not employees.
No, but I meant, but you know what I mean, we appoint them to the.
And they
so-
represent our town.
So they definitely should follow.
Yeah, I can get that out.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe each board should have their own rules of order and procedure.
What agendas?
That, I think, is probably the appropriate way that it's done.
This could go to each committee. This is ours, and maybe they, as a committee, can come up with some type of rules of order. Not necessarily following ours, because each committee is different.
No, but this is just rules of order. They'll have different practices, but these are guidelines of them.
Right, these are the guidelines of
Right.
them, yeah.
Is the
But
board
at
ready?
least it's a good idea. In this thing here, we're saying we meet at regular sessions, our agendas, how we communicate our reports, if we have to call a special meeting, what the procedure is,
I think all of the committees have to do all of that.
but do they have it in writing? That's the next question.
Right, that's why we should.
Yeah, I think I'd be happy to distribute this to everybody and put appropriate wording saying, this is what applies specifically to the Board of Selectmen and all town employees. And these are the expectations the board has for all committees that represent the town. And if you have suggestions for modifications specific to you, that's not a motion, but specific to you, we'd be more than happy. It'll change by moment, but something like that, I think that's what the board would do.
You might just want to change the title of this. It says Rules of Order and Procedure for Wiscasset Select Board. And then you could just add underneath that, and guidelines for committees and commissions, or however you want to, or for all town employees, or however. I'm just trying to make it easier.
How could you?
I mean, it's basic common courtesy.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Get
We
the
already voted on accepting this.
yes,
Okay,
We did?
yes.
yes, we already voted on accepting this.
We did.
We
I know
did.
Ben motioned it, and I seconded it, I don't, we voted.
Well, then I had a question, but did I ask the question after we voted?
I haven't written down that we voted, not yet.
I don't have it written down. We voted.
Have
You
you
guys
no
write
question?
it down?
Okay, let's vote again. All those in favor? 5-0. Okay, that took care of that discussion. Yes, Judy?
Could I make a suggestion as you are sending this out to your commissions and committees? We've talked several times over the years about the need of enlightening the volunteers on our committees to really understanding and following the right to know law. And about you don't vote by email, you don't, there's a whole lot of stuff, and some of it comes out of people being ignorant of what the rules are about that type of thing. So it would be wonderful if you could encourage members of, through the chairs of each committee, that there is a need for you to know and understand and use those rules.
Thank you. Yes, Kim?
If you are doing this, would it be at all possible to include that you would expect committees and boards to produce an agenda in advance of their meeting and to produce minutes after their meeting so that they can be posted to the town website? If you take a look at the existing list, there are committees that do very well. The planning board does fairly well.
Thank Jackie for everything.
Yes, the one that does the best is historic preservation. They're very much up to date and always seem to be. There are other committees that have never posted anything, and some that are years behind. So it would be really nice if that was just that simple thing was done.
Thank you. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we don't post the minutes until after they're approved, which is after the next meeting, so
Right.
you might not see it until 2 weeks after the meeting.
Right. Well, just like ours don't get posted until after they've been approved.
Right.
Correct. Mhm.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Now that Judy brought it up,
Oh, golly.
unless I don't see it here, there's nothing in here that requires that a selectman be present to vote. And if you remember, one year, there was a chairman who voted on the budget over the phone. And
If you remember, one year,
But we as a board voted, I know what he's thinking about, Ed wasn't here.
Ed was not
But
here.
we voted as a
And
board, so-
no, he was here by phone.
Right.
and I'm saying we shouldn't allow that.
We shouldn't or should?
Should not.
I know what we voted on it as a board too.
That's why the one meeting that I missed, I asked John that question, in case that there was a vote. That at least if I could watch it on TV and I could participate in the meeting from home. And he said no, but that would not be the way to go, and I agreed with him. That's why when I watched it, I said if I had any comments, I'd call him on a cell phone. And I was good, I didn't, you guys did a great job, I didn't call.
No, it's awkward because you don't know who else is, at a public meeting, you know who's there, you know who the individual selectman is talking to, whereas he or she could be on a computer or somebody in the back or somebody from the next room influencing them. So they're not really at the same meeting, is my view.
Well, I guess my question, should we include that a member has to be present to vote?
Under voting,
Yeah.
well, it says every board member present.
Exactly.
It says,
But it doesn't say, but these are the same that we've had for years. And there was at least one occasion where
Yes.
a member voted over the phone. The board allowed it to happen.
if I'm not mistaken, I think that, if I remember that incident, that it was gone through MMA, and they are the ones that said that we could do it.
It's when he had his
He
meeting.
had his knee replacement, and he said, and it was on the budget,
Correct.
We did each article, each line. by line.
Yeah, I was here, I remember that.
But I agree, it does say every board member present.
It's even clearer when they describe quorum, which nowadays 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Item 12, the majority of the board constitutes a quorum. If less than a quorum convenes at any meeting, the majority of those present may send for any or all of those members absent. If a quorum cannot be obtained, the meeting may be adjourned. The board may opt to continue in workshop session as a committee of the whole. So to me, that's pretty clear.
But it doesn't address the issue we're talking about. The board had a quorum that night, but they still chose to let somebody call up and vote over the phone. I'm suggesting that we put something in there that prevents that. you're present or you're not allowed to vote.
That's why I take, it does say that under voting, every board member present, not unless you add must be present.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you must be present to vote on an issue.
Okay, then why not change it, every board member must be present when a question is put to a vote?
No, we can't do that,
Why?
because we own this meetings now, I mean, you can't.
And we don't vote.
We don't vote.
I mean, if I miss
I'm
a
only
meeting.
pointing out the way this is written, the board has allowed people to vote who weren't present.
Well, in my time, 10 years, it's only happened once that I know of.
Well, okay, I'd rather it never happen again, that's all.
But Judy's suggestion for this number 19 is, and it says every board member present, she is suggesting we insert must be present when a question is put to vote. So doesn't that take care of what you are concerned about?
It must be present to vote on an issue.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, that says they have to be here.
Okay, every board member must be present.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes.
I feel like you can be present without being physically present. I conduct a lot of, I'm getting my master's degree 70% online. We have Zoom meetings. We do a tremendous amount of work on go-to meetings, and we have discussions and are never physically together. I'm just going to mention to you that like nowadays you don't actually have to be somewhere to be present. I'm not going to argue, but it's 2019. But I'm not going to argue anymore.
Good.
I just wanted to say that you don't actually have to be present to be present.
But for a real meeting, yeah.
Not really.
Okay, do you want to make a motion to amend this? Then?
I do, but the wording throws me off at the moment.
I mean, I could Skype into the meeting and turn my computer at you, and then my face would be there, and I would be just as present. What if I was a paraplegic and I was in a wheelchair, stuck in my house, and I was Skyping in? People conduct business in this way every day, and they're considered present. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to matter that much. It sounds like if it's happened once in 10 years, it doesn't really matter, but I wouldn't want to,
I didn't.
But, and just to clarify, it was, Ed put a lot of work into the budget, and then he scheduled this procedure, the budget ran over. He deserved to be, do you know what I mean? So I'm not gonna vote for the change, do you know what I mean? Because I agree with Kim. I do understand what Ben's saying too, but there are just certain circumstances that I don't wanna tie up, for the prospect, you know what I mean, for the success of the board.
Because usually we will rearrange a meeting
Right.
if something is important that person needs to be here to vote.
Right.
And as you said, that particular time, he had surgery.
Right.
It was already scheduled, the budget was behind schedule, the whole 9 yards. And as I said, only one time in 10 years did it ever happen.
I can hear the violins playing. I made my case.
Absolutely.
I think that we should be here. I would ask, could we check on state law? I don't know what they've done with it, but I know the issue has been taken up in the last couple of years.
Okay.
So I won't send this out anybody yet, until we've had no discussion. You can do it either way.
Well, okay, looking at it that way, I would hate to have all these other committees making decisions without members being there. I don't think it's fair to the public to have to talk to a TV screen. Well, we are a democracy, it would be nice to be able to be face to face.
You're right.
Could you just check on that and see just what the law does say? Thank you.
Okay.
So we'll leave it as is for the moment.
Right. Okay. New business license. Kevin and Ami Chung doing business as Sea Salt. There was an issue on the back from the fire department. I see, requesting a phone call, a phone cell, occupancy, fire escape, ETC. Code enforcement was talking about adequate parking.
And the fire escape.
One place for rental room.
What sort of business is this?
This is for Airbnb,
Yes. it is.
Okay.
which means someone has property that they will be renting under this website Airbnb, which is worldwide.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is under the code enforcement officer and adequate parking, I guess he said, then there's a note that says check with TJ and it's okay, so I'm assuming that part of it is okay.
Right.
Now, the last part down here under fire department, requesting a phone call, occupancy, which I assume he means how many people, I don't know, fire escape, etc. And then he signed, TJ signed it, but I don't know whether his concerns were addressed. Were they because he signed it, or
Well, it looks like he signed it back on
on the
July
8th,
8th.
the same date that these,
Yes, and Kathy is pretty conscientious about
okay.
keeping these things up to date,
Yeah.
so I would say with these questions, and they are public safety, and both code enforcement and the fire department
Mhm.
reflect the same concern.
You always thought that, yeah, okay, I just want to be sure.
What is the parking situation for this particular location?
Federal Street.
One per,
Is that right beside the elementary school? Because I know Bruce was talking to me.
87 Federal Street.
Is that right
I think it's
beside
this white one right here,
87?
across the street.
Is that, yeah, that's.
Sometimes this isn't accurate, this is Google Earth, but I just pulled it up.
Yeah, well,
You know which
What's
one?
that?
The one with the pretty blue door.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
for
opposite
parking
that
spaces.
Morton Street that runs
Doesn't
have-
parallel to
I don't think
the
it's-
parking lot.
Where on Federal Street is it, Kim?
It's right across from the, what used to be the middle school. So this is the elementary school sign, this is the parking lot.
And Morton Street that goes along
It's right across from when you come out, when you pull out of the elementary school, there's that white building with the porch and the blue door.
Okay, that's it?
I think so.
Does,
Do they plan on parking in the school
so
parking
does
lot?
the
Looks
landlord,
like they have a parking, driveway there.
so does the landlord have parking? Does the owner of this?
the, there's a nice
He has
driveway.
parking, he has a driveway.
He does, okay, no, I just can't, I just couldn't see it, I just didn't know if there was parking.
Is this our first Airbnb that's had an application?
That's why I
Yeah, it does
commented
say
that it was Airbnb, because we were talking about it earlier, and they should do a business license, and we now have our first one.
Yeah, true.
What's the board's pleasure?
I move that we accept the application as presented.
Second.
Well, it looks to me like the fire chief's concerns haven't been answered.
I
That was
agree.
my only question.
I don't know. And when they're saying about the parking, I'd like to know I'd like that expounded on. I mean, the school's right across the street. Aren't they gonna use the school parking lot?
There was a driveway in the picture,
Driveway.
but it says here, check with TJ Mary 715, okay, Bruce. So that makes me feel like it was okay.
Yeah, Bruce, yeah, that's why I assumed that one was okay.
One space per rental room. I mean, sometimes this isn't accurate, so we shouldn't go by that picture. You know, like if I try and find my house, it's the wrong one. Maybe if you want to go check out the parking.
If I remember the house coming out of the school, there's probably enough room for 2 cars in that driveway.
This picture has 3.
Yes.
Well, I can amend my motion if,
You guys
to
wanna look?
asking the,
Okay. Yeah, all right.
see it?
Yep.
To approve this if John is willing to have Kathy check with TJ on the last part of it instead of waiting another 2 weeks to let these people come up.
Yeah,
Is that acceptable?
yeah.
Willing to second my amended?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
to
we have
wait.
these answers.
Well, just to have them to check. and-
Yeah, because what if it's actually that house? So, yeah, I would amend it.
Okay, so you.
I really don't understand the code enforcement response on this either.
Oh, I do.
Now, that's my last one.
The code enforcement officer makes sure of adequate parking, 1 space per rental room. And then he wrote, check with TJ, and it's okay. And then he signed it.
That's what doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense. Why would the fire chief check on parking?
Because they probably had to go and look for
All the other stuff?
all the other stuff. And then-
Like I said, this is the first application I've ever seen where there's
Yeah.
comments written, but
Wait,
Kim's
wait,
right. Sign.
wait a minute, I'm trying to figure out, are they renting the whole house?
Yes.
Or are they renting a room? It sounds to me like they're renting rooms,
It can be anything on Airbnb.
because it says make sure of adequate parking, 1 space per rental room.
Right.
So if that's a 3-bedroom home, you would need
4. And for the landowner.
And right, you need 4
Presuming
spaces.
the owner is there. Airbnb, you can rent out your sofa.
Right.
Honest to God.
Kim's
But-
exactly right.
It's Village 2, which according to our zoning is a requirement for
Oh my gosh.
rent a room, 1 parking space per room, bedroom rented. So it's a 3-bedroom house,
It's
it
already
would be
on.
3
It's
parking
already on.
spaces off-street
It's his house.
provided by the owner, which I think is more than adequate at that.
2 guests, 1 bedroom, 1 bed.
Yeah, it's a private room in a guest house, and it's the house across the street from that, the one with the biggest fence, with the round fence posts.
And it allows 2 guests,
It is-
1 bedroom.
The only concern that I have is parking, this parking.
Yeah.
Is not.
Well,
Well, I guess parking enough for 2 people.
Do they have parking? I always wondered where they parked.
Me too, I thought those
You know
were
that
the
little
people-
house inside
I
the
thought they
fence?
parked in the middle school parking, I thought that was the house that parked in the middle school or primary school parking lot.
The other thing is when you get into the Airbnb thing, they do make a distinction between a house that rents rooms while the resident is still in the house, and then when they rent rooms when the resident is not in the house, and it makes quite a difference to how kind of tenants you get, what kind of experience your neighbors will have.
Oh, it says that it's free parking on premises.
As what?
I'm looking at their ad on Airbnb.com,
Yeah.
and they do advertise that they have free parking on premises.
Does it say how many units that's rented?
Yeah, they're renting 1 unit.
Well,
So they're already renting and they don't have a license?
Yes. Or they're advertising.
I'm fine if there's parking,
It says she is a super host.
She's a what?
A super host.
It's a review.
I'm sorry, I'm getting punchy. It's like hot in here.
Okay.
We have to vote on the amended motion.
What was the amended motion?
Yeah, accept as presented, and if John O'Connell will have Kathy check with
With TJ about the
TJ about
rest.
the parking.
I think that's.
Fire department, business, and parking.
Yep. I'm for it. Yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
Wow, 2 votes. And you're present, too.
Okay, 5-0.
You're present here.
I was reluctant. Vote. I said I was reluctant in voting that. I did.
Well, so am I. I mean, and I trust the manager will speak to the fire chief. I want to be sure that
Maybe it's coded or whatever.
You know, fire escape particularly, and Jackie says, et cetera, at the bottom of it, as if he has a number of concerns.
And if these are not met, then the license is not active, right?
I'll satisfy whatever it is. I'll get back in touch with you as chair
Okay.
if there's any complication.
All right, proposed solar power installation at airport.
Okay. First off, Rick Tetra, who's the manager of the airport, went down to the Sanford Municipal Airport, had a nice trip and so on and so forth. But they've got some solar power down there. And so the following week, interestingly enough, a company called, what's the name? Cenergy, C-E-N-E-R-G-Y from California came up, had a preliminary meeting with Rick Tetra, myself, and whoever Rick's assistant is. And they're saying, oh, what a great site. We could use 30 acres for solar panels. That's on the other side. Obviously the hookups to the grid from both Mason Station and Main Yankee are a cost they do not have to incur, but that is partly what makes it interesting to them. Apparently they've done a lot of installations in airports all over the country, Tangen, Illinois, all very familiar with the FAA. I don't know how much detail you want, but what I found kind of cool was they got these panels and they adjust.
Right.
They were between 4 feet and 7 feet, and they follow the sun.
Right. It's like
And so it's midday,
It's really
it's
cool.
flat, and apparently no glare is reflected at the pilots because it's always
changing.
always underneath.
Yeah.
I asked about snow drifts and so on. They said, yeah, it just shuts itself down when things get better. It activates itself. No maintenance on the part of the host site, and they plant low-growing grass, which they cut once a year. So anyway, at this point, they asked us what our electricity usage was town-wide. Because one option would be you just pay and get money, and the other would be that you get a reduction in your electricity bill. And I'm just going to wait and see and keep the board informed about anything they come up with. It's interesting. You know, revenue's a good thing, at least I think so.
Do they want to come? I swear Synergy was here a number of years ago when we talked about putting it on the different town buildings.
They didn't mention that, but they very well may have.
Yeah.
But they've done a lot of these things
Right.
all over the country. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, for what it's worth.
I'm definitely intrigued. When
Yeah.
I went online and looked about how they do it, it's really kind of cool.
That's it.
So I don't know if it's the same company, because the town did turn that down.
Right.
I said there's no mention of numbers or figures in
No,
here
not
or
yet.
anything at all.
Not yet.
I chose not to go out and look over the site because it's all waterlogged and Ted's guys were out there mowing and getting marine clay thrown up on the mower. I said, I'll take the pass, I'll take the road. Then I went back here. So anyway, that's the.
No, it's interesting. Absolutely.
It won't generate any tax revenue, will it?
Yeah.
I understood the solar panels were gonna be exempt.
No, they give us cash or they give us reduction in electricity cost or combination. I don't know what the dollars are.
Out of the Green New Deal.
They're quiet neighbors, that's what they say. They're quiet neighbors.
The sun doesn't make much noise.
That 5 feet of snow on top of all those.
Well, I asked about that, kind of.
Oh, yeah, really? Did she know that?
Okay, next item, 2018-2019 carry forward.
Do we get to these?
Do
Well, I
we
guess-
have, excuse me, do we have any paperwork on that?
It was in your mailbox.
Oh, did you get it?
I just put it in your mailbox like at 5:30 or so.
Oh, I wouldn't know.
I can go back.
Does anybody else want me to go? Well, I guess before we talk about the carry forwards, Judy, you had mentioned about the over expenditures. There's a total of $11,502.78 in overdrafts, and I don't know, as John pointed out earlier, we haven't received the last quarterly payment request from the county for animal control.
11,000 what?
$11,502.78.
That's the net difference between where we were under and where we were over.
It's the accounts that are over. The ones that are over on page 2 is municipal insurance. Also on page 2 is the overlay, Parks and Rec on page 3, and the senior center on page 3 at the bottom. So those are the 4 departments that were over their budgeted amount.
And combined, it's 11,000.
And combined, it's 11,502.78. So I don't know what the board's pleasure is to address those, if we're going to address them at a special town meeting, if we want to take them out of contingency, or how the board wants to handle them.
I'm not sure how you're adding here. I have Parks and Recreation over by 8,500, and retiree health over by 46.
I'm sorry? You don't look like you have the same report that I do.
Oh,
I was looking at this one.
No, that's a different one.
That's a different one.
It's just the first one.
Will the overdraft be the same on both?
There was a warrant posted after that one. This is the latest and greatest.
And is it senior center in that number too?
Yes. So if we start on the page 1, there were no overdrafts. Page 2, down at the bottom, you've got municipal insurance for $335.08. You've got overlay for $378.05. At the bottom of page 3, you have senior center for $1,752.68. Parks and Rec, I'm sorry, back up on the top of page 3 is $9,037.04. And those add up to the $11,502.78.
And how much are the amounts that were under? How much do the accounts under add up to? Do you know that?
I don't. It would be at the bottom there, Kim, on the bottom of page 4, the total unexpended balance is at $275,577.62.
Oh, and so it would be that plus the.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct, what had been overdrafted.
And are the revenue shortages, do they count within, like, I know they don't count for overdrafts, but was the park short on their revenue as
Yes.
well?
Yes.
So that's, I guess what I'm getting at is an overdraft too. Do you know what I mean? So they've overdrafted plus they're short on revenue too. It's a slippery slope, so.
It is. But as far as what the town select people have to choose how they want to handle the overdrafts is
Oh, I get it, no.
either go into a special town meeting or choose to take it out of contingency.
So what, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Kim.
So the other amount, right, the 275, that would be our carry forward. Do we get to choose where we put that?
That's not all carry forward,
Okay.
unfortunately. In the past, all of the Mason Station property and all of the other tax acquired properties that we have these land installment contracts, which are land installment contracts where they have the 4 months to pay. All of that had been considered undesignated funds, and it's not undesignated. It's really non-spendable, because until we start collecting that money, it's not undesignated. So there's over $500,000 worth of tax acquired property that's non-spendable. There's $106,000 that we were talking about earlier for the EMS that's non-spendable. There are some other items that are non-spendable. So at the end of the year, we've got $885,000 of non-spendable fund balance. At this point in time, without doing the adjustment for deferred revenue, we're $150,000 in the red. for fund balance. That journal entry that we'll do once we know what's been collected in the first 60 days, which is part of that process. I'm anticipating that we'll be bringing that up, but I still anticipate our undesignated fund balance to be negative 34,000-ish.
So are you saying the 275,000 that I before thought was carried forward would offset?
It's offset by the loss of revenues that we have, and by moving over the money that has been incorrectly sitting in undesignated into non-spendable.
Can I ask another question? This is maybe for you guys. How much does it cost to hold a special town meeting?
Pennies.
Pennies?
If we were just holding a special town meeting to cover overdrafts.
Because you don't, there's nothing printed, you just have a copy, you have a card.
Yeah.
Because I really, and maybe Ben's going there as well as I do, this isn't something I want to take out of contingency.
No, because it's going to drain our contingency. $11,000, we won't have any contingency left.
It would come out of contingency last year, of which you have $19,000.
Oh. Well then contingency.
That's the difference.
That's what it's for.
You have, if you look on the bottom of page 1, you've got $19,636 left over in contingency, because the only thing that was spent out of it were those signs for downtown. There was nothing spent out of contingency with that exception.
I'd have to take it out of that.
She's showing balance.
But, okay, but it doesn't matter which way we do it, it's gonna add to the overdraft of the general fund.
It's going to affect the overall fund balance of the general fund, yes. But if the board chooses to use contingency to cover those overdrafts, you don't have to take it to a special town meeting.
I would take it to a special town meeting, and I would vote to recommend them all, but I think just to
Agreed.
be upfront about it,
Right.
do it that way.
I feel like that's why we have the contingency, in case something goes wrong or is unexpected.
But
If
this
you
isn't,
know that.
this isn't unexpected.
I think it was unexpected. We didn't plan to be overdrawn. Nobody planned to be overdrawn.
But we also have an article that the taxpayers vote on that gives us the option to take care of any overdrafts as the board sees fit. We don't necessarily have to go back to a special town meeting. Am I not mistaken?
Yes, you are. You're correct as far as using contingency money, we can do that. But to go above and beyond, we'd have to go to a special town meeting.
This isn't.
So you want to go to a special?
In fact, it's pretty well below.
You want to go to a special town meeting and take the, get the voters' approval to take the money out of contingency. Is that what you're saying?
I would feel good about it. Like I said, I will vote to recommend taking the monies.
If this was
Catherine?
I agree with Ben and Jeff. I think this is not only, it's a question of, yes, we can do it with it, take it out of contingency, which will be the ultimate result, but I think in a special town meeting, we have the opportunity to explain why we have this overdraft. Or all this, this money that has to be paid back.
And in this case,
And I don't think it's going to be, it doesn't, as he said, it's only pennies for a town meeting, and we have to put an ad in the paper and
Just set a date.
and just set a date. So I feel better about at least giving the people the opportunity to come and vote. If they do, they do. If they don't, we did our best, and we're going to do what
I'm
we
not
have
faulting
to do.
the departments, for being overdrafted, but I would like the town to be able to ask, for example, Lisa, and say, can you explain? Do you know what the overdrafts are? I would want an explanation.
I can tell you what the biggest part of our overdraft is actually more than our overdraft. They didn't budget enough for the workers' comp insurance.
then that's awesome. That's what I.
That was
have you-
$16,000 over what they budgeted.
The rec department takes it on the chin, do you know what I mean? And for Lisa to say that in a public meeting, people would go, oh my gosh, that's understandable. Do you see what I'm
Which is
getting
one
at?
of the reasons-
If we just move the money, they're gonna go, there it goes, there it goes again. So all I want is just, it to be, so that the town knows, you know what I mean? I get it.
That's one of the reasons, Jeff, if you weren't here during this year's budget, that even when Marion was here and after she left, I encouraged the board to include that in the municipal insurances rather than having it in the department, because it blows your department's budget. You have no control over it.
Right.
She had no control over what that insurance was.
No, and it just leads really clarity for what the overdraft is.
I just feel like exactly for that reason, right, that she had no control over it and that we know that, right, and that coupled with the fact that we have the contingency set aside for just this type of thing, there's no reason to bring it to the town, because then that's gonna blow people up. If we take this out of contingency, no one's gonna be like, oh, look at this, in the paper, we have to go and vote for the rec, and then she will take it on the chin. There's no reason to do that. We have the authority to move the money from contingency, and that's what the contingency is there for. That's why we raised it, and the people voted to approve that.
It wasn't necessarily raised to cover overdrafts.
It was raised to cover anything that's unplanned. That's what contingency funds are for, whether it's your furnace blowing up or workers' compensation hit you on the head with a huge increase that you had no control over.
Bernice, play devil's advocate, what are you gonna do if you go to a town's meeting and the townspeople say no?
Which could very well happen.
I have more faith in the townspeople.
I've never known a town to say no.
Just asking.
It has generally been the history of the town over the years to take overdrafts to town meetings.
I mean, I agree with you as far as being upfront.
And for all the reasons that were said. And I'm not sure that the workman's compensation thing, I wouldn't lay that necessarily at Lisa's doorstep.
Me neither.
What do you mean?
I don't think it's her fault.
No, that's exactly.
That's her point, yeah.
You know, I'm not looking to find blame with anybody for anything.
Nope.
I just think that going to a town meeting is the cleanest way to do it.
Well, do we have, anybody want to make a motion on what we're doing?
I will. I move that we take this matter before the special town meeting and
For the overdraft,
For the
$11,500.
for the amount of
Which
$11,502.70.
Which may be more if, when we get that fourth quarter bill from the county for animal control, we'll have to add that in there.
When is that going to happen, do you know?
John's gonna try to get in touch with him tomorrow, see if we can expedite that bill so that we can get it paid.
So when would we have to have a public meeting, town meeting?
Well, you've got audit coming up for tax committee.
That's not gonna matter as far as the audit is concerned, though. It will just show in the audit that it is an overdraft. Whereas if you take it from contingency, it won't show as an overdraft.
Are we getting anywhere near commitment?
We're doing the audit next week.
Okay. Judy?
It's going to town meeting, is that to take the money out of contingency?
No,
Not at all, that
it would
not,
it would be to take it out of undesignated funds.
but it could be worded that, do you approve, we have this left in contingency to take it out?
No, because it would be after at this point in time, the board has the discretion to take the funds out of contingency. Once it goes to the town meeting and the books are closed, it would have to be worded to come out of undesignated funds.
Why, when are the books closed?
They're closed right now, we're auditing on Monday.
So they have to decide tonight.
If they're going to use contingency, yes. If they're going to go to town meeting, which is what it sounds like their wishes are, it would be just like every other year we go to town meeting, the warrant article says, shall the town vote to cover these overdrafts out of undesignated fund balance? And no matter which way you shake it, it's gonna result in the same end result.
I think the undesignated fund balance makes Designated fund
We
rather.
have a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
What was the motion?
I was just going to ask you to take the matter to the special town meeting for the overdraft of, and I didn't put the amount.
To authorize the Board of Selectmen to take the money necessary to cover that amount.
For that
What the
overdraft.
amount is, to cover the overdrafts and the money to come from undesignated funds.
Okay, all those in favor of the special town meeting? Those opposed? Okay.
Madam Chair, could I,
Yes.
same sort of question, looking at this one, that's what threw me off, it was the end of the year. I'm just curious, how was it like that the cemetery perpetual care was 80,000 in the hole? Was it just banking?
I didn't create that report, and I'm not sure what you're looking at. Perpetual care, if you're looking at just the expense part of it,
He's looking at what was on 10B on our agenda.
I didn't look at it.
Like all those little things.
Right, because there is not a budget set up for that item, is why it looks like that. That's the $80,000 that we took out of the 513 for perpetual care, and we gave it to the 514. There wasn't a budget set up.
But the money's there, I mean, it's not,
Yes.
it's not a pressure.
How about,
I hate that report, just saying.
All right, the cemetery operations, it says we're over by $59.
Mhm.
Is that money that just needs to be taken out of the town to cover it?
No, it would be taken out of that 513 perpetual care.
Okay.
There's money in Payson. That's the perpetual care Payson money. That money pulls over, and we never know for sure how much we're gonna spend. So we pull over an estimated amount based on what the townspeople vote for us to pull over. If it gets spent over a little bit, then the town's carrying it until we pull over enough money to cover that from Payson.
And the auditor can do that without a vote of the town?
The auditor didn't do it, I did it.
You can do it without a vote of the town?
The town people voted for us to bring it over up to a certain amount. I need to look at that further. I don't even like answering that question without knowing all of the information about that report, to be honest
Okay.
with you.
Okay, I just, you know, but you can understand my confusion?
I do, and that's why I said I don't particularly like that report.
Okay. I can accept that.
But the
answer.
report that I would give you that would make more sense from my perspective would be more than 2 pages long.
Well, shouldn't these reports be coming from her? I mean, I don't know who generated this, if you did.
I assume Ellen or Kathy did, it didn't come from me.
They come from Ellen.
Comes from
Okay,
She emails them out
okay.
a couple, like, we got that report in our email. You have a town email, you got that in there somewhere.
Okay, let us go on to the town manager. I'm sorry.
So now we need to talk about if we want to carry forward any money into the next year
From departments,
from departments.
why would we want to do that?
I don't know, do we have any unfinished projects that we want to finish? Do we want to carry that contingency money in case there's something like the floors that are gonna be more than the $45,000 that we planned? Do we want to carry anything for the waterfront, the municipal building?
To all those, I would say yes. Fire department, we've got 19,869 surplus, and I would, we've got a lot of work to do on the floors. Fire department is getting quite worked out about it all, and there's carpets and God knows what else we need to do, so my recommendation, just not to pretend we need to fix it. And the municipal building, there is $4,700, and there's, including Dennis's little project and so on and so forth. And we have a lot of work to do, upgrading the telephone system. And we're so far behind on maintenance, and Ted is doing what he can, but we've got rotten boards around and so on. And so it's up to the board, of course. And then my last one was as Bernice mentioned, waterfront. That's page 4. There is so much work to be done there. It's not money. There's no revenue of any consequence, and just repairs. And we're going to have to look very hard at how we the condition, we'll have to get a structural evaluation of the creamery pier, particularly with all the loads on it and vehicles. And so I would look to keeping some of that 11,192 to fix very needed repairs. Not sure if we can fix the revenue side, which of course is a challenge pretty much every department. We're not getting the revenues to help us support the services. And I understand the town taxpayers, they're taxed pretty heavily, and hate to go back to them. We hit them hard with the sewer fees. And we've got lots of liens, and we're fighting with people that are falling behind. Well, I shouldn't say fighting. They're struggling, and we're trying to deal with them as they fall behind yet again. So, to me, it's finding revenues. We've been under budgeting for a lot of reasons, but we haven't been very innovative or successful in getting additional revenues. And that's been my concern from day one. And that's why we're running deficits in many of these departments. The revenue just isn't there. I'm not picking on any particular department. So there's a lot of stuff to be done, a lot of stuff to be caught up. So that's why I'm suggesting that some of these things it's the known, if you will. We know I've got this the clock tower. I'm glad they worked on the powder place. We've got cemeteries. We've got the Scout Hall. I'm not sure what that future will bring, but it'll include repairs. And a lot of buildings, a lot of infrastructure, and of course, even though it is an enterprise fund, we have the sewer department. We've got some more bids here to do with something that Rick talked about earlier. So I don't like to pretend that it's going to get fixed next year. I think some of these departments should have not spent all the money. I think it would be appropriate to keep money. In Ted's budget, he didn't fill a position, the mechanic position, and that's why he has a surplus there, but he's got short staff, frantically running all over the place. So I don't know
how the board feels, but I went to a waterfront committee meeting, and the bathrooms down there are atrocious.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I thought that had been resolved a couple of years ago, that we were going to have a bathroom, down there. And it's for us to generate more revenue I think that's, in my opinion, just a must, because people will come. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, we had to go around soon after I arrived about those bathrooms, and that's the other part of the waterfront. By putting the money in there, it gives
right.
Some of that could be used towards dealing with the bathroom.
Right.
So we have $275,000 that is unexpended, correct?
Mm-hmm. Actually, more than that, you had 11,502 back into that was over. But in total, yes, 275. I'm certainly not encouraging to carry all of that forward, because remember what I had stated earlier, we're already going to be at a negative fund balance, so there's not going to be any undesignated fund balance to reduce taxes by this year. And the more that we reserve by calling it carry forward, the less there will be in undesignated.
I know, that's why I'm sitting here looking at the $275,000. Yes, Kathy?
I'm thinking, why don't we let John decide or come up with a list of, all of his recommendations, which he just kind of quickly went through. But obviously, some of these need to be carried forward for just.
Yeah, some does.
Some do and some don't, and he and Bernice can certainly.
We'll give you a rationale, and then up to the board to make the final call.
But if they're carried over, I would want them to be designated for a certain thing, not just added to this year's budget, so that they have more money to spend. In other words, if you're going to
forward.
Yeah, say, the highway department, if you're going to give them an extra $16,000, let's say, then that there's a reason for that $16,000. It's not just to increase that budget for $16,000.
No, agreed, very specific.
It'd be very specific, and that's the only thing that money can be spent for.
There are two pockets of money set aside that were set aside in the previous year. There was $6,000, 5 or 6 in finance, or in 5 or 6 in police, anticipating that there might be raises more than the 2% in the union contract. That's still sitting there unless the board decides to move that into undesignated funds.
I was going to mention that. We voted on the carry forward last year, because I voted against it.
Yes.
It was 5,000, and they ended up with 24,000 to the good. I would like John to come up with a list. And like, it just shows some rationale for doing it.
Right.
Like last year, I never could understand the police department rationale, and
It was an anticipation that the union contracts were gonna get
you know, we didn't have any employees at the time. Well, I mean, seriously, there wasn't any back pay issue because they didn't have any back up.
No, it's not back pay. It's increase in pay with the new union contract.
But I
It
thought
was
that
not
was in the
back.
budget. I thought that was always put into the budget.
2% was put in the budget.
Yeah.
But I believe that there was some discussion at the time that the police union contract might be more than 2%, or the cost of the negotiating would be more than what there was in the budget. That's why that Marion had that carried forward.
And where are they now?
Like I said, I don't mind the carryover, but I do want to know where you're planning on spending it. I just don't want to increase, sorry Ted, but I don't want to increase somebody's budget and think they have extra money.
I don't think we were even talking about highway earlier.
Well, I mentioned highway earlier because they've got $50-some thousand.
Right.
That was for the position that didn't get filled.
Right. And I understand
Yeah.
that. And I'm not saying that, you know, the departments don't need things, that the municipal building needs things done, the fire department needs the floors done. But I want to make sure that that's what that money is designated for.
So the audit is going to start on Monday. So before he can finalize our side of it, remember the same as last year, he'll present a draft to us before you commit taxes, so that you know where undesignated fund is. I can tell you right now, there won't be any to use reduced taxes.
Well, we pretty much knew that at the end of the budget process. We knew
Right.
that there wasn't going to be any.
Right, but he will need to know what the board's pleasure is as far as what we are going to carry for and for what its purpose is to include it in the audit.
Okay.
So is it possible that that would be voted on the August 6th meeting with John's
If John
recommendations?
has it ready. If John has it ready, I don't see why we can't.
Have to, times two.
But these figures don't affect the tax commitment itself.
Given that we have no fund balance, no.
Oh, okay.
Just so that we are clear on that, you're right, you're 100% right. But historically,
No
you
money. We have
want
no
the
money.
audit done before you commit those taxes, but I'm telling you right now, there's no fund balance.
And I believe you.
Okay.
I'm just saying that.
Once we ever sell some of that Mason Station property, then we'll add to our fund balance, and hopefully this brownfield grant is going to make that happen. But we're sitting on $500,000 worth of taxes that we've been sitting on for a long time.
Okay. Are we all set on that?
Yes.
All right, let's go on to the town manager's report.
Okay, item one is easy. The on transfer station contract has been signed. We have it in hand. Items B and C, Maine Municipal Association Risk Management Visit. Mr. Cummings, last week, wasn't it? Last
Yeah.
Wednesday?
Thursday.
He came by, Ted's department did very nicely. I'll give you the full report, at the next meeting. But Ted's department did nicely, rec center nicely, just some small things. Definitely concerned about the structural integrity of the of the Creamery Pier when we saw all the stuff there, all of which, I'll give you more details. Safety Works visits, as it happens, they landed on the same day. Again, Ted was fine, and Rec Center, and as you know, with the wastewater, it's a work in progress, as is what needs to be done for Safety Works. And so I'll give you more details on both of those. Item D, town audit begins July 29. Denise told you that. Kathy asked me at the last meeting about Dollar General and Dollar Tree licenses, business licenses, and yes, they do have them. Marijuana legal update. I am going to attend a workshop on August 21st with a view to crafting a question for the November ballot. And all I'll be doing initially is getting a wording of the question to the board to say, yes, this is the question we want to ask, because the town clerk needs that wording to start submitting information for the ballot. After that, we'll have to go through the discussions, the public hearings, and all that good stuff. So I'll be going there August 21st, and I'll have the wording to Linda by Tuesday, the 3rd of September, which should not be any difficulty. So that's that one. I talked about the Stranded Act matter, about the stranded costs related to clean up for Maine Yankee. I did correspond with both Senator King's and Senator Collins' offices, thanking them for their efforts. And I've already had a visit from 2 people from Collins' office, and I'll be seeing one from Senator King's office tomorrow, a fellow called Wilkinson. And I would just say, keep on trucking, as they say. Railroad Avenue signs, if you recollect, those handicap signs and parking signs were right on the curb, the path. You've got the fence near the railroad track, then you have the paved footpath, pavement, and then the signs were right on the roadside of those. And DOT apparently got some sort of instructions from somebody saying that's where to put them. So I spoke to, I think it was you, Judy, and I spoke to Ted, and we agreed that they should go back to up against the fence so people can plow, don't get hit. Yes, because.
No, finish, please.
Have a word?
I had a question about the sign, but please finish.
Want me to stop?
No, I do not.
Sure.
I want you to finish.
So they'll be moving back to the fence. And of course, the contractor wasn't happy because everything's nice and smooth and perfect. Now they're going to pull them up and stick them back. So that'll happen in September.
Yes, a while back, I had mentioned the signs on Railroad Avenue. I don't know if they've been addressed because, or if anyone has even looked at them, because I haven't been down there lately. But they were like way up there. And you were driving, and in your clear vision, you did not see the signs, some of them, because they were way up there. And it seemed really odd, and I didn't know if they were temporary or permanent, and I feel like they should be addressed because I know what the traffic pattern is down there, and I started going the wrong way down Railroad and went, oh my God, and turned around.
Well, I'll be at DOT tomorrow night and I'll ask them about that because
I don't know what the normal height of a sign is.
Well, we could have 2 sets, one high, one low.
You mean the
Sure,
signs?
why not? For the short people at the top.
Are you talking the signs down towards the sewage treatment plant and everything?
Yes.
Oh, I drove through there a few weeks ago and I thought they were confusing.
It's bizarre. They're so high, you can't see them.
It looked like it was almost telling you to go the wrong way.
Somebody needs to look at it or we're going to have accidents.
You're absolutely right.
I'll be there tomorrow night. Let's see, I'm trying to get through the rest of it for you. If you recollect, Rick had asked for the grant reimbursement thing from a municipal safety and for that magnetic manhole lifter. So just got a check for $1,227.95.
Good for him.
That's a good thing. Okay, now Rick has been working kind of long hours, so apologize for not being able to be here. However, he did ask me for your approval of personal spending, which probably comes as a surprise. If you recollect that the last step after processing is when they have to send all the remaining water into the river, and that's very, very important that it be checked. DEP has been on that for quite a while, and the current machine we have, which isn't working that well, is 20 years old, is obsolete, can't get parts. So he got two prices for the same piece of equipment. One is doing shipping hand, and all the rest is from HACH, I think it's called, pronounced hack. 7,418.50, and the other is from USA Blue Book, identical piece of equipment is $7,289.90. He would like the board to give him permission to do a little bit of additional negotiating, delivery times and some costs to see if he can have this shaded a little bit. And so that was his request. And there's a thing called flow pace. As the fluid is going through, it's very important to have the machine calibrating at the right speed, and that's something that was a weakness in the old system, which is obsolete anyway. Right. DEP would be very pleased about this because this is the last step before it lands in the river. So it's very important to know that the system is working. So if
do you need a motion or just a nod of heads?
I prefer a motion and consider this. Let me see, what's the name of the thing? Effluent composite sample equipment. There's no neat name for it. And so we got two numbers, one is 741850 from HACH, H-A-C-H, and the other is 728990 from USA Blue Book. And as I said, Rick would like to see if he could work those numbers a little bit. So
will we authorize the manager and the storage treatment plant operator to review those bids and work with the one which is best for the town?
Okay.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
On behalf of Rick and the Sheepshead River, I thank you. The other thing he did ask, he's looking for feedback from the board. When they're taking septage from boats or from campers, whatever, he does not have a way of measuring the volume and has to take their word for the volume. And so he would like, at some point, to have a flow meter and 2 hours of startup for $3,600. He just said, get the board's reaction to that. It's a good idea. I asked him flat out. If it would generate any additional revenue. He said probably. At least you know.
Because you know what he's charging. Absolutely. Yeah, makes sense to me.
So that's just a reaction from the board. He didn't expect a decision. And let's see, is that?
I'll pull my reaction then.
Okay, so I put that on the agenda.
But I guess I don't know how the board feels, but this is the summer.
Yeah.
We got boats coming in, we got campers coming in, this would be the time to do it.
I'm gonna do it.
That is the one, a couple of weeks ago, we agreed to institute the price increase immediately.
Right.
All right, well, if the board is,
I make a motion that
Should we
we allow
approve
him
it?
to go and
I'll
get
second
this
that.
well,
thing.
he'll be happy he stayed away.
I'll second that.
I'll just
Second it.
All in favor? Thank you. By the way, there's some huge boat time going to be tying up here tonight.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
How can
They
it
came
not,
out
how can it not help?
professionals.
Right?
Just for one night, race hold. Let's see, striping you've seen over the weekend. All right, I stand corrected, over the weekend. You've seen the striping in the parking lot. We're going to test drive it, so to speak. The ash pond, we're about to get together to talk to about the ash pond schedule within a week or two. Had a little go around with the permits for the Wiscasset Art Walk. Transpires that, and I've copied some of you on it. The vendors didn't have business licenses, and 3 of them were food vendors. So I was speaking to Lucia Dorby.
Lucia.
Lucia. Lucia. And so I said, look, I can ask the board to have a temporary business license. And she named the three people. I don't know, the three food people are Oysters, owned by Lucas Marr of Portland, Blazing Tomato Wood-Fired Pizza, owned by Walter Shea of Jefferson, and Scrummy Afters Candy Shop, 2 P's and an E, owners Hillary and Kim Davis from Hollowell. She said all 3 vendors are licensed and insured, and the insurance was an issue for me because of liability. At one point she was talking about an oyster cart, which freaked me out, but that was no longer on the list. So if the board would temporarily grant a one-time preliminary permit for this coming Thursday, and they'll have another one next month, but everything will be in place.
So we're really talking 3.
Yes.
Yeah. Blazing.
It should be Scrummy Affair. It's
Isn't
a
that a great
Scrummy
name?
After, it's a Scrummy Affair though.
It is, it's a
It's
great
across from
name.
the Liberal Cup.
Correct.
You can't go to Hollow without going to the Scrummy Affair.
Correct.
It's like going into.
We have to act on this tonight.
So you can have it.
Well, I move we suspend the rules for the purpose of taking up an issue which is not on the agenda.
Yes, we're gonna have to,
Yeah, it did just show.
We've
give
done
my-
it like 3
give
times.
my
on
attention
tonight, though,
yesterday,
right?
and I just got back.
Haven't we like taken up an issue that wasn't on the agenda and we've done it 3 times tonight?
she came before us in May and discussed it, but there was never a decision made and about the licenses and everything. That's why it all of a sudden
So do we
came
just
up.
need to make a motion to?
We need a motion to, for the vendors, a license, temporary licenses for the 3 vendors.
For one.
For one,
For this coming Thursday.
this coming Thursday.
So I make a motion.
Wait, there's a motion before the board.
Oh, just to change the rules. It's not on the agenda, so.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Ben, just stick with
I'm
it.
looking at the clock. I'm
But this is
sorry.
like the 4th one tonight that's not on the agenda. So I don't understand, like how come
Right.
I retract my question. Second the motion.
Okay.
To suspend the rules.
Sure.
She is right.
All those in favor?
Fourth.
Okay.
Now we can make the motion for the vendors.
I'll second Kim's motion if she's
Okay.
going to approve it.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we, what do you say, that we provide
Approve
approve
the
a
temporary
temporary
business license.
one-night business license for Oysters, Blazing Tomato Wood-Fired Pizza, and a Scrummy Affairs.
I'll second that.
You said the oysters were out.
No oysters. Look, that's when I saw oyster cart, I said, woo. And it didn't make the list. That's good.
It's on here, but it's not.
Oh, really? They were there last year, they're so great.
He said they're not on.
They're not there this year?
She said oyster cart at one point, and then when I said, who are the vendors? She gave me those 3
The
names.
Oyster Cart was there a couple of weeks ago. I think.
Yeah, somehow.
No dead bodies on the street.
Well, those are the 3 names, right?
Just the 3 names, that's what she gave me.
Then that's,
He's an oyster cart. Oh, oysters is an oyster cart.
right.
Oh, that is an
Well, he's
oyster cart.
saying that it's out, but it's
No,
on
I'm
this
sorry.
list.
I'm sorry. I guess I didn't read it.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll second Kim's motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Yeah.
5-0.
I only
Okay.
got this afternoon, so I haven't really mastered
And then by next month, they'll have
everything.
everything in place. So we won't have to go through this every month.
No. It'll be, they've got 2 more months
Okay,
coming up.
all right.
at the end of next
And
month.
we'll approve a one-time thing for each of the
For
next
the
ones.
next, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sorry about all the stuff, I mean, stuff comes in fast sometimes.
Did
I have to deal with it. And the last thing is, you'd be amused to know that it's information, it's not the telephone pole by the platform where they have the music, right? New pole, everything's up kosher, and now we're going to get billed for it because we were not getting billed for it. Just so you know. And that's the good news. Okay. New service, Main Street, pole 13, pedestal service for band and stand-in lights. And that is it from me. I'm sorry, I can't think of anything.
Okay, are you sure?
Not really. Now,
Now we have other board business, executive session to discuss disposition of publicly held property. I'll make a motion for the board to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4066C.
Second.
Joe, I just got a question.
All those in favor?
Good night.
Yeah.
Good night, Bill.
could you hit the air conditioner, it doesn't matter.